It is Oktoberfest time, ja.
Ja, das ist recht.
We,
Das
Worst
ist sehr
time of the
gut.
year.
German jokes.
We served up a bunch of that like half an hour ago. Not even.
The worst.
But yeah, I do. Say what you will about pumpkin stuff. I mean, there's a lot of stuff that's pretty good, but to me, Oktoberfest beers are the best part of this time of year.
Oh, yeah.
That, and they started selling eggnog at Hornbacher's.
Ooh.
Oh,
So I grabbed a thing of cinnamon stuff in the mini fridge downstairs. We'll have to take advantage of.
Good,
We
good.
We should have done that instead of...
Whiskey?
Yeah.
I mean, whiskey's good.
Whiskey's fine.
Whiskey's good.
It is.
But eggnog is better.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, we at Knights Columbus, there's like the Buck Luck dinner for $1 the Newman Center puts on every week. So we Knights Columbus Council usually does the Oktoberfest one, so we get a keg of root beer, make some homemade nefarious soup and bratwurst. Beer brats, yep. And it turned out pretty good.
Yeah. Had just enough food to feed everybody first line.
Like just
first
enough.
way through the line, so.
We were a little short on the
Buns.
bratwurst buns, but other than that,
And
it was
that was a fun thing we did just
full
a little
house.
earlier.
Full
Oh, yeah.
house for the Oktoberfest. I don't know if that was just everybody deciding to show up this week or if they knew it was Oktoberfest and was like, heck yeah. But regardless, it was a good night. So, what else has been new recently? Oh, stuff happened yesterday. We were going to record yesterday. Not like anybody listening is going to care when we record, as long as we get the episode out.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
I got up very early to go hunting, and I came home. Well, okay. I got back to my brother's place at around like 2 o'clock. We ate food, and then I just kind of fell asleep on the couch watching the Bison game with them and my niece. I fell asleep, and then I barely had enough time to get home and get ready to attempt to make a dish for the potluck.
And follow the instructions not very well.
Well, it was close. It was close. I put too
when
much
you're
water.
Baking bread products close doesn't get you much.
There was these packs of pizza dough mix, right? So you mix them with water and knead them up, and you got your dough. I was trying to make homemade pizza rolls where you put the toppings on, roll them up, cut them up, and bake them. But I put too much water in the dough. The recipe called for like the frozen stuff you thaw out, but it was like 4 to 6 hours thawing out, and I did not have I had under an hour to make the stuff. So long story short, it didn't work. It doesn't taste bad, but it wasn't worthy of the potluck. So I fortunately just happened to have 3 entire apple crisps. So I was like, you know what? I'll just bring one of these.
Just by happenstance.
Yeah, it just happened.
3 entire apple crisps.
Those apple fillings that were sitting in the freezer for 2 years.
You finally made use of them?
Yep, all 3 of them.
At once.
Yep. But, I mean, it turned out good.
I can't believe you guys kept those when you moved.
I was like, I'm going to make some apple crisps. I was bound and determined.
I made one pie. I had like 3 bags of that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I made 2 pies for Thanksgiving one year.
Mm-hmm.
And I think I picked those... Oh gosh, when was it?
We had to dig them out of the frost in the
I think it was fall 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
That was on my gap year.
Mm-hmm.
My one of my friends from high school has a little apple tree in her backyard, and one of our traditions is picking apples in the fall. So
yeah, well, we finally cooked them up into some apple crisps, and they turned out.
Yeah.
So didn't really have to do too much with them.
It's not like they got weird in the back of the freezer in the 2 years we had them.
See, I can cook some things right. Apple crisp
When
that
you
turned
follow
out.
the instructions.
Okay, there are
yes.
3 things that are required for James to make food properly. 1, time. 2, somebody to whom I can ask questions if I run into trouble. And 3, adequate sleep. None of those 3 did I have when I was making the attempt at pizza rolls.
Pizza roll.
I still think I could pull it off with those things.
Of course, you got to the apple crisp last possible minute of the day because you spent 3 hours cleaning your gun for 20 minutes.
That sucked. Oh man. So okay, I hadn't cleaned my shotgun. This banter bit is just story time with James. I'm sorry, but so
Story time with James
Friday,
is funny.
Yeah, Friday. I had some overtime I needed to use as time off, so I did. And on Friday, so I ran a bunch of errands. It was great. And then I'm like, okay, I haven't cleaned my shotgun in 5 years, and that's bad for it. So I got all the stuff, took the whole thing apart, and cleaned it. It was great. Put it back together. And I put it back together. And I put it back together. And every time I tried to go do the pump, something was sticking and just not working. I watched a YouTube video. That was, about an hour and a half in. I watched a YouTube video. I was like, okay, so I'm doing it right. And then on the final try, I just was like extra gentle and nice to it, and it just works. I'm like, I did the exact same thing over and over and over again. These only go together one way. And then it just happened to work. I was like, okay, cool. Apple crisp time. It's 10:30. I can do this. But that was, oh man. And I didn't even shoot any pheasants with it. I mean, mostly because the majority of the pheasants we found on the hunt were hens, and you can't shoot those. But one of our group did get a pheasant, so we weren't skunked. But I don't know. It was a beautiful fall day to be hiking around in fields, so it wasn't all that bad. But that's my story time done. How are you guys?
Well, we're right in the thick of things right now.
Mm-hmm.
I just got done with most of my midterm stuff. Pretty much all of my midterm stuff, really. But yeah, that was a busy week with all that jazz, which is why we couldn't record at our usual Wednesday evening slot.
Mm-hmm.
I was busy writing an introduction to a paper that I had to submit the following day.
Mm-hmm.
So, and I had an essay for my modern philosophy class, and then, yeah, now that I finally got to the weekend, I have time to do the more homework that's due on Monday.
Yep.
Work never ends here.
Never ending.
Yeah, I'm kind of in midterms. I had a test earlier this week and got a test coming up next week, and just doing the work, plugging away at it, the whole thing.
My analog, I guess, with work would be the 2 big projects I have, or design projects I have due by like the second week of November that I'm working on. But nice thing about that is once I'm done with those, work will get pretty chill until Thanksgiving, which is nice because there are 2 modes at my work. I'm either crazy busy going insane, or there's nothing to do. There is no in between. So, but yeah, it's just plugging along. Life is good. Oh no.
Oh no?
I just remembered.
What did you remember?
Well, you guys saw this, but Thursday, which was my Friday, I was still mind wandering enough to wonder, what does Kermit the Frog look like with human eyes? And I think it was prompted by the memory of a Photoshop of C-3PO with human eyes. So I Googled it, and sure enough, first result, I was not disappointed.
And then there was more.
And then there were more.
And more.
They just kept coming. And there was
all of the
coming.
Muppets with human eyes.
Miss Piggy was
And it's
Miss Piggy
terrifying.
was the one that for some reason my brain didn't immediately question. And that
She's
scared
got
me a
kind
little
of
bit.
flesh tone
Right.
body going on.
Yeah. So like if you told like an AI to make like or to make a Muppet or something, it'd probably come out something like that. Or
I think Gonzo might have been the most cursed, if you ask me.
Because the eyes were just a little too small. Because that's the thing about Muppets is they just had like these comically oversized, like
exaggerated features. They're yeah.
And then you just have like normal proportioned human eyes on things where human eyes should not be. Beans in pictures of beans where beans should not be. Absurd.
Uh-oh, looks like you got friggin' bean, apostrophe D. Tag your friends to totally beaned them.
I always found...
I love 2015 Facebook. It was just like...
Those were the
peak of all
days.
things.
Oh, yeah.
Back when you could actually have dank memes and you didn't get zucked for every little thing.
Yep. Now...
Those were the days.
Now good luck finding any meme page still functioning.
They're still out there, but the content is just
Not as
exceedingly...
good.
It's just tame. There's nothing dank about it.
They're playing it safe.
Well, they have to.
Yeah.
Otherwise, they don't have a page anymore.
Pretty much. Twitter, some pages still have pretty good stuff.
Yeah, Twitter just gives me brain damage. I just can't be on it anymore.
No.
I'm done. I'm done.
Whenever I like take a look at quote unquote Catholic Twitter stuff going on, every once in a while I just see someone posting and scolding everyone for some sort of argument, and I never know what the argument is because apparently I'm not following the right people. But it's just like, oh, apparently there was some sort of drama going on. I have no idea.
It's
Marshall's
Twitter.
at
There
it
is
again.
constantly drama.
What's that?
Taylor Marshall's at it again.
Oh, boy.
Oh, jeez. Looks like just a normal day.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, he put out a video not too long ago about the Pope doing a Masonic handshake with Nancy Pelosi.
I saw that.
And I'm just like, dude,
I was like, of course
you
you
have
did.
nothing better to do with your time than
I just looked at that. I'm like, we have reached peak Dr. Taylor Marshall. Like, this is exactly where everybody
if you
thought
that
was
this
going.
guy has any credibility left, this should shred all of it.
Yep. Your Uncle TM is very pleased with his content. Your weird Uncle TM. Yeah, it's a brand. It's that hashtag Catholic brand that people so very much love to use and abuse as they see fit.
Speaking of brand,
Russell Brand, he's got opinions. We also have opinions. We're the Palladium Papists. I'm James.
I'm Nathan.
and I'm Riley.
Let's see. This is an
week
edition of
it's
Super
gonna
Serial?
Be in it, yeah, Super Serial.
One day, 3 lads from North Dakota were bitten by a radioactive television, and with their powers combined, they are Super Serial!
All right.
Yeah, despite the fact that we're not primarily talking about the TV show this time around,
Oh,
I still feel like the format is appropriate.
it's
because
gregarious serial.
No.
No,
It's
because it's a manga series, which is a serial.
Yeah, I suppose it's like the
Is-
Phineas and Ferb TV show versus, and then there's a couple of movies.
The Phineas and Ferb manga.
Yeah.
So-
I'd
so
read
I wonder
that.
if something like that actually.
So if we were to
exists.
ever
I'd read that.
If we were to ever like cover a comic instead of the movie that's based on the comic, would we do a serial or would we do a
I think so.
novel idea?
I think Super Serial fits comics better than
Mm-hmm.
Novel Ideas does.
Yeah, I know that like Avatar.
a
The
novel
Last-
serial?
Oh.
Especially given the flavor of the bumper.
Yeah.
Sure.
But so what are we getting Super Serial about?
But this week we're getting Super Serial about the Promised Neverland.
Not global warming, Al Gore.
Not any of that.
That's
Man,
not the
or not
content we're
man,
getting. That's
not Man Bear Pig.
Yeah, it's not the serialized content we're getting serious about.
No.
It isn't. So, The Promised Neverland is a pretty recently published manga. I think they started writing it in 2018-ish.
Mm-hmm.
So fairly.
And the first,
that's like 3 years ago.
Fairly recently. The first season of the anime came out winter 2019, I want to say.
Sure.
So, right around that time frame, but it's a very, very good. The first season is incredibly good. because it covers the best arc in the manga. And the second season, they went off the deep end and did their own thing.
Oh.
And all of that sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Wasn't that
Because
kind of
they took out the second best arc.
Too? Where like
No.
the first edition was like
The
a little
first,
off?
the original Full Metal Alchemist did go original, but most people didn't hate it. They thought they actually did an interesting creative ending, or basically the whole direction.
Was that the
just
one we
took
watched?
a hard fork. What's that?
Which one did we watch?
We watched Brotherhood.
We watched
the one based on
Brotherhood,
the
which
manga.
was the one that follows the manga faithfully.
Gotcha.
The first one
yes.
is more like Game of Thrones, and the fact that they kind of had to make up their own ending because the ending wasn't written yet.
Sure.
Right. And they had to make up like half the series.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So
That'd be
there's a
like
lot
if
of original.
that'd be like if My Hero Academia decided to do that.
Or if any show decided to do that.
Yeah. What the approach that most shows use is put jam filler in there,
Uh-huh.
but
By
filler
time.
does not befit Full Metal Alchemist.
No.
It's a lean show. But we're not talking about that.
No.
We've already
Promised
talked about
Neverland.
that.
We promise we'll talk about Promised
We
Neverland.
promise. We promise.
There is no Johnny Depp in this one. That's Finding Neverland. But this
Yep.
is different.
Can we start?
Yes.
Yes. Let's.
James.
Okay.
So anyway, there's a fun story about this frog I saw. No.
With human eyes.
This was an actual frog. Okay, all right, I'm done.
Go.
Okay.
I won't interrupt
So-
you anymore.
The plot of this show begins at the Grace Field House, which is this idyllic little orphanage, quite removed from the world. It's off on a hill, and it's undisturbed by the hustle and bustle of ordinary life. Emma is our main character, 11.5-year-old girl, and she has two close friends, Norman and Ray, who are her same age as her.
Mm-hmm.
They're all prodigiously intelligent. They get perfect scores on all their tests and stuff, so these kids are like,
kids
some
are
of the
alright.
best that the orphanage has ever seen. So that's interesting and will
Mhm.
become relevant. And they receive, they get lots of food and have comfortable and playful lives and lots of love and care and attention from their mom,
So,
who is kind of like the lady that runs the orphanage.
oh, okay. This is pretty counter to most orphanage origin stories for main
Yes,
characters.
most orphanage origin stories are like, I hate my life. This is an awful place. Get me out of here.
Oliver Twist is the playbook for most orphanage depictions.
Now we're going to get to that point. We're going to
Oh.
get to the point that they want out. And we're going to get there pretty quickly. So, kind of the Kickstarter event is that one of the siblings, Connie, is being adopted.
Oh.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and so everyone's all sad that she has to leave, but they're happy that she's getting adopted. And then she leaves behind her little stuffed rabbit, little bunny, and Emma and Norman find it, and are like, oh no, Connie will be distraught if she doesn't have little bunny. We gotta go bring it to her. So they run off down the hill after Connie, and there's a truck sitting there kind of beyond the gate, which they're not supposed to go to. It's against the rules to go beyond the gate. So they're breaking the rules to bring this little bunny to Connie, but they figure that's a worthwhile price.
Mm-hmm.
And so they're looking around. Nobody's there. They can't find her. And so they walk up to the back of the truck, and Connie's body is in there with a flower stuck through it, and she's dead.
Ah.
Oh.
And they're like, what? I can't believe this. What's going on? And then they hear some voices behind them, and so they quickly duck underneath the truck. And these voices are talking about eating things.
Mm-hmm.
Goodness.
Man, I could go for a cat, But, so they slowly peek out from under the edge of the truck, and there's these, they describe them as demons, that's their name for them, but There's like single-eyed creatures that are like 8 feet tall and very scary looking, and
Cyclops.
so yeah. So they're all freaked out and stuff, and one of them like sniffs around a little bit. It's like, "You smell human." The other one's like, "Yeah, I smell human."
A burglar
so-
robot.
And then Emma and Norman run off back to the house before they get caught, but they left little Bunny.
Uh-oh.
So the people know that somebody knows.
They
now-
they weren't supposed to go beyond the fence for a reason.
But not only that, but they know the secret of the orphanage. That it's essentially a place where children are farmed to be eaten by demonic creatures.
Oh.
That's what's going on here.
I see.
So they have to act like they don't know, so that Mom doesn't figure out that it's them, because Mom was down there talking to the demon people. So she's in on it, obviously. And so they go through some various shenanigans. They find out that Ray knows as well, because he's been spying on them for Mom. But he's also pretty much on their side, so he's like double-crossing people left and right. So Ray knows, and he's part of the crew. And so they go through various steps, trying to outmaneuver Mom, and getting figured out, and having their plans foiled and such. But eventually, they get to a point where they've convinced Mom that they've given up. But really, they haven't given up at all. And they told all the rest of the kids at the farm. Originally, they were like, we can't tell everyone, because the 6-year-olds will freak out, and they won't believe us. But they told the next youngest kids, who were like, yeah, I figured something was weird, because they have numbers tattooed on their necks. There's like a 5-digit number. There's lots of little tells that give away
weird.
that something like this is going on. So, and these kids are like
Scan this
obviously
QR code.
all prodigiously smart. So they kind of they get on board pretty quickly. So while Mom's attention is focused on the 3 older kids, the younger ones are busy getting things ready behind their back. So they hatch a plan to escape, and they execute it successfully. And I will leave how exactly that happens to your viewing or reading pleasure when you get to that someday if you do, because it's very exciting.
Fine.
But yes, they get out, as one might expect.
Does their IQ or
their intelligence
have anything to do with the reason why they're on the menu?
Yes. The brain is the most delicious part of you.
So the smarter you are, you have more gray matter.
The smarter you are.
Tasty.
And that's why that they take the youngest kids with the lowest scores and ship those out first. And keep the older kids no older
Let
than
them
12.
mature a little bit.
But, that's the maximum point of maturity is 12 years old. So, and regardless of where you're at by the time that point, you get adopted, quote unquote.
So our main characters are reaching their expiration date.
They are. And that's part of the tension. Norman gets shipped out shortly before the end of the escape arc. As a deterrent to Emma and Ray to keep them from acting up. So there are some indicators in that sequence that, they instead of putting him on the truck right away, Mom says, why don't you come and wait over here in this room off to the side for a bit? And that's all the more we see. So Norman could be alive. He could not be alive. We don't know. And so, after they escape, there's some evidence in the library that they have that there's someone on the outside who's helping people on the inside to escape and survive once they get out. because it's a demon's world out there after all.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to be able to, scavenge and find shelter and all of that jazz. And so they discover through this, the figure calls himself William Minerva. And he left a pen for them to be able to navigate around the world that they find themselves in. And so it has like this coordinate system and a map that's projected into the air that they can use. So they're heading off to the location that it's set to go. And they're being pursued by the demons as they go, of course. And while they're out in the wild, they encounter some more feral-looking demons.
Mm-hmm.
And they seem to lack intelligence, but they look...
the ones that don't eat brains?
They don't, well, evidently not. And so they're about to get caught by some of the demons from the farm. So I'll be like, I'll distract them and you take out the big one and make a break for it. And they're like, Ray, no, you can't. You gotta stay with us. And he's like, don't worry, it'll be fine. And lo and behold, it was not fine.
Uh-huh.
Ray is a 12-year-old kid against several
8-foot tall Cyclops demon people.
8-foot tall Cyclops demon people. And all seems to be lost and, things are on the verge of disaster when all of a sudden a hooded figure comes in and swoops Ray off his feet and carries him away on a horse. A demon horse, but a horse all the same. And so someone else, another hooded figure, takes out the big demon that's been pursuing the whole rest of the gang. And so somebody's out there coming to their aid. And so Ray and Emma wake up in separate places and are like, where's my family? Where's everybody at?
Mm-hmm.
And then it's like, oh, don't worry. They're fine. They're right over there. We can go see them now if you want. And they turn and look at them and it's like, oh, we got rescued by some demons who apparently don't want to eat us. And they explain that they are part of a older religious sect of the demons who don't eat farm humans out of principle. So if there were wild humans that they could hunt, that would be a different story. That would be permitted. But they're like, yeah, we're not about this whole farm life thing. That seems pretty unethical. So we're not going to eat you guys. And so they're like, okay, that sounds great. I like not dying, and I like not being eaten. So they find out from Sanja and Mujika, who are their rescuers, that the world is kind of split in two, almost. Kind of the demons have their spot, and the humans have their spot, but there's no interaction between them. So it's not permitted for the kids to escape into the human world. So they're kind of stuck. But Emma's like, this is good information. At least it tells us about, we know for certain what the state of the world is. And, once we get established, we can figure something else from there. And let's see what else. Any other important details about that part? Yeah, so the Mujika says, like, yeah, if you were going to go the way you were going to go, they were going to catch you, and going through the forest is a bad idea. So take this way through the desert, because the demons don't go out there. It'll take longer, but you'll be safe. They're like, thanks, demon prowls. Bye. And he's like, I'm only helping them survive so that they can reproduce and make me humans to hunt. So that's what they're kind of in it for. But, in the immediate future, there's no threat to them from those demons. And there's only 2 of them. So they eventually make it to this bunker, which is hidden away in the desert. And inside is like a fully furnished living space for lots and lots of people with like full electricity, plumbing, and all that. So Mr. Minerva definitely has his connections. because he's the one that's supplied the space for them. And upon a little further exploration of the bunker, they find that someone else is in there. Just one old dude. Old being, like late teens. He's like,
I'm
what are you
almost
kids
an
doing?
adult.
What are you kids doing here? Get off my lawn. Get off my lawn.
Almost an adult. He's an old salt.
Mr. Hugo, as he is called, is like, yeah, my whole group, they did. I escaped my farm, a different farm than yours, but a long time ago. So, yeah, if you want to get out of here, sucks to suck, you're all gonna die. I'm depressed.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
as teenagers do.
As late teenagers whose all of their friends have died do. So they have to go to Goldie Pond, which is this. It's a location, way off in the distance. They don't know. Mr. Hugo hasn't told them much about it, but they're like, well, all the kids are safe, so we'll take me and Ray and go out there and do what we have to do to contact the human world. Because rumor has it, there's a way they can get in touch out there with Mr. Minerva. So they go out there, and Emma and Mr. Hugo get separated as they're going in. So Emma's in there all by herself. And it's this kind of like nice, idyllic little town. But there's nobody around. And this music starts playing from these loudspeakers overhead. And some kid runs out and is like, what are you doing in the streets? We gotta go. And so the kid explains, yeah, this is a sort of a hunting ground for the demons to come and play with their food before they eat us. So, and they, every so often, poach up new humans from the farms and bring them in here. And this is all illegal as far as demon society is concerned, but people are doing it anyway. And so it's pretty clear that Emma is not aware of what's going on, so the other kids help her out, and there's a contingent that has gotten pretty stable and is able to survive. So they hatch a big old plan to kill off all the demon aristocrats that are running the place. And so they do that, and it's fun. It's great. They decided not to put it in the anime because they're stupid.
Oh.
This is the second best arc in the whole thing. It's a lot of fun. Lots of good action sequences and stuff. But they're like, nope, we're cutting this.
Oh.
And everyone hated them for it.
Yeah.
And so they eventually get down to the Goldie Pond, after which the place is named, which is a golden pond, as the name would suggest.
Sure.
And there's like this staircase. And they're like, what's the staircase? And they're like, they can't get in there for some reason because they need the pen. There's a little slot for you to put the pen in there. But they didn't bring the pen because Ray has it. So they're like, all right, rather than doing that, let's hit the self-destruct button and get out of here. So they hit the self-destruct button and get out of there. So now they have some clues based on what they learned at Goldie Pond. And they are told in order to they need to go beyond the 7 walls. That's all the more they really know. And there's some obtuse, arcane clues about how to do that, and they can't really figure it out. Because you have to go, it tells you to go to the east, then the north, then the west, then the south, and you'll get there. And it's like, that just takes us back to where we started. This is stupid advice. So, while they're away, while they were in Goldie Pond, they learn that William Minerva's real name is his name is James Rotry. And his family was the ones who are responsible for being the go-between for the human and demon worlds. And so he, in that position, has the ability to, make things happen, as it were. But his family found out that he was helping the kids, and so or helping kids in general. So they disgraced him, kicked him out, and put his younger brother in charge.
Mm-hmm.
So now Peter Rautry is the one running things, and he's a big old meanie and a jerk and hates the children, all of the children. And so
James
he sends a goon squad after the shelter.
No. Don't blame me.
I was just
James.
I was just noticing the names James and Peter, and also Neverland as a part of the title, and about children who don't get to grow up because they get et. So I'm just
Yes, children don't get to grow up because Neverland. The promised part is something we don't know much about, but we will later.
I'm just noticing the references and parallels, that they're obvious and purposeful.
Yes, they are obvious and purposeful.
Anyway, you may continue.
And so after that, Peter sends a goon squad after the shelter, and they have a big old firefight between Mr. and the Rautry goons, and there's, of course, a bunch of escape tunnels and ways to get out, so they get out. And so Minerva has sent them a message about where they should go from here. So they go to the next set of coordinates that they're told, and there's this big old treehouse that is a shelter, another shelter that's been made. And they go in there and they find Norman.
Oh.
Hey Norman, how you doing? It's been a while since we've seen you. What have you been up to? Oh, I was just being tortured and experimented on at this new lab called Lambda, at which they were doing a bunch of very crazy experiments, essentially to produce
a resonance
their
cascade?
goal is to
A resonance cascade?
yeah, something like that. We haven't talked about that one before, so
No. G-Man. Anyway.
G-Man,
Different man.
Yeah.
Gordon.
So they're doing
Norman.
experiments on Norman.
They're doing experiments on Norman and
Putting
others.
GMOs in their crop or what?
Sort of. They're essentially trying to produce. They're trying to mass produce meat. is
Oh,
what
so they're trying
there
to
for.
see if they can clone him.
Yeah, and
So
they
is
have
this-
They have others that they've attempted to and failed, and generally the meat is not very petable because when they're mass producing, you
The
don't.
brain quality isn't
The
quite.
brain quality is low, so people don't like it by and large.
Is this Norman Prime or is this a copy?
No, this is actual Norman.
Got it.
It's been 2 years at this point, so Norman's older.
Like 14.
Yeah, they're around 14. And so Norman's really tall and looks like a boss, and is the boss of all of the kids that were at Lambda, most of whom are much older than him.
Mm-hmm.
But they've been executing raids on farms and supply depots and stuff. So they're kind of an experienced little crew.
Mm-hmm.
But, as it turns out, Norman kind of wants to do a genocide on the entire demon race, which is a reasonable thing to want to do. I get that.
Given his circumstance, it makes sense that he would want to.
Mm-hmm.
Given everybody's circumstance. But Emma's
like a
hold
rocket
up.
wanting to kill everyone.
Yeah. But Emma's like, hold up. Maybe we don't.
Let's just get out of here and then
Maybe these
not
creatures
genocide.
are sentient, and although they're doing something horribly cruel to us, some of them are kind of just out here trying to live their lives. So let's try to find a different solution, hey? She's like, I know this lady, and she doesn't eat people, but she maintains her rational form. So during this conversation, we find out that the reason that the demons eat humans, because they become what they eat. Really, like they actually do. So the more feral ones are eating lesser creatures and adopting those traits. So they just kind of adapt and incorporate whatever they eat. And so they've grown accustomed to eating humans because that gives them the most benefit overall.
Mm-hmm.
And the big old war that was happening way back when is one that they decided to solve with a promise by going beyond the 7 walls and making a deal with the name in the manga is just like this weird demonic script that they use. So it's just like a blob, but he's referred to as him or the one. So these people are good Platonians. They've studied their Plotinus metaphysics and know that the principle of all being is called the one.
I see.
Even though the one is a demon.
So the kids have to get out of the cave, as it were.
No, this is not another Plato analogy.
Besides, if anything, they escaped the cave in the first arc. So
True.
They do escape the cave. But Plotinus is a very different metaphysics than Plato. So
There are no shadow puppets.
there are no shadow puppets, there is no cave. Anyway, where were we? Right, the promise.
No
the
genocide.
him.
The him, the one. So, way back when, the Ratri family, thousands of years ago, with a set of like 5 or 6 characters that look remarkably like the 5 or 6 main human characters from the present day. They decide that the Ratri guy should be the one that makes the promise. So he has to figure out how to go beyond the 7 walls and meet with so that they can, make a deal. But we don't know much
Dormammu
about
have come to bargain.
It's kind of how it goes. There's a big, scary black dragon out there in beyond the 7 walls. Oh,
Bunch of Endermans
important
zipping
detail.
around.
Emma, at the end of Goldie Pond, had this moment where she was briefly teleported beyond the 7 walls.
Oh.
But the one is like, you didn't come here by the normal door. I'm glad to see you, but get out. So boots are back out, and so she's got a glimpse of the place. She knows what it looks like. And it's like a glass lake of water with like a dark sky overhead, but the underside is like as if the sun is shining through it. So it's like it's very neat. It's a nice set piece.
Neat little visual.
But where were we?
Making a deal with...
Yeah, we're making a deal. And so part of the deal was that the Ratris have to negotiate, be in perpetuity, the people that maintain relations between the human and demon worlds in exchange for them not killing each other. That was the deal.
Getting some
And so
Undertale vibes.
Emma wants to make a new promise to change the terms of things so that they don't have to murder all the demons.
Pray that I don't alter it any further.
And Norman's like, I get where you're coming from. Oh, he's also like, oh, the evil-blooded one is still alive? That puts a hole in my plan. Because apparently, Mujika has the ability to, she has this ability inherently that she doesn't have to eat human meat in order to stay in the human form. And she has the ability to give that to other people by a transfusion of her blood.
Oh.
Which is how Sonja also doesn't deteriorate. So they're like, what if we create a giant transfusion for the entire demon populace so that we don't have to kill them all? And Norman's like, how about I kill her instead so that I can, in good conscience, kill all the rest of them? So he's kind of bent on killing them all at this point.
He woke up and chose violence.
He did. And which is understandable given what they put him through.
Mm-hmm.
But all the same, Emma wants to find a way to avoid that. So she and Ray are trying to find a way beyond the 7 walls, whilst Norman and his crew are hatching a plan to kill them all. So they're kind of in a race. Norman's like, I'm willing to give you the time. If by the time I execute my plan, you show up and say, hey, I made a new promise, then I'll call it off. Otherwise, they're going bye-bye. So she's on the clock and has to figure out how to get there and make a new promise and all that. So Ray being the smartest of the three in terms of raw intelligence, figures out the puzzle. The 7 walls are space and time. The 6 directions, up, down, left, right, east, west.
A, B, start.
Forward, backward.
Yeah.
In
Yeah,
time.
all those axes and stuff. And the 7th being time. So they literally have to transcend space-time in order to meet the 1.
Mm-hmm.
So they
Sounds easy.
Yeah.
they have to find another Goldie Pond, another
'Cause
one of
they blowed up the first one, right?
They blued up the first one. That one's not there anymore. That's one of the key ingredients.
But they have
and
to
there's
have the
some
pen this time.
There's some other stuff in there. And so, that Goldie Pond was actually a way to the human world. That's why they needed the pen. There was an elevator there that would take them back. But not all Goldie Ponds are like that. Some of them are just places where you transcend space-time. Like you do.
Like you do.
Like you do.
Transcend space-time or take an elevator. You pick.
Well, the elevator's much easier.
Yeah.
So, eventually Emma gets there and makes a new deal with the 1. And, of course, the price is always the thing you desire the most. That's what you have to give up in order to make a promise with the 1. So, we don't know what that is quite yet, because we just know that she went there and made a deal. And so, Mujika shows up and says, hey, I can fix you all. And they're like, okay. And they call off the invasion because Emma made a new promise. And all of the big bad demon aristocrats are dead. And they make Sonja the new king. And everything's good. Except they can't find Emma. She's gone. She didn't come back. So all of the kids go to the new... they go back to the human world and land in New York like you do. Right on Ellis Island. All of them. Very convenient
Island,
spot to land.
Yeah. It's where most people came into the U.S. in the 1800s and stuff.
And so Emma's not there. And they kind of scour the world. She's
Emma's
not
not there.
Emma's not there. Emma is in Antarctica or something. And she's had all of her memories of her previous life wiped. She gets found by this, Antarctic man, and he brings her in, is like, what are you doing out here? She's like, I don't know. I just kind of showed up. Oh, you must be one of those kids they're talking about on the news. Because, people just appearing out of nowhere.
That's newsworthy.
That's newsworthy. Bunch of kids showing up.
And is this kids from other farms too, or just
yes,
them?
Everyone has been released.
Oh. Because
the demons no longer need to eat humans to maintain their form. So they can make farms of something non-sentient to eat. And so Ray and Norman are scouring the world to try to find Emma. They eventually find her, and they go up to her and is like, hey, Emma. And then she's like, who the heck are you guys? She's like, we're your best friends. You've known us your whole life. She's like, I don't know you. Please get away from me.
I have no memory of these people.
And she eventually kind of notes that they all seem to know her, and that even though her memories of them are gone, she thinks that she might be able to, forge a life with these people. So they ride off merrily into the sunset.
The thing she cherished most was her friends. Her. Sounds about right.
It's a shonen manga. It's
Yeah.
Power friendship.
Power friendship.
That doesn't actually yield combat power. It just yields the will to
save the world.
Fix
Deus
the
Ex
entirety
Machina.
of society. There we go. That's
there we
it.
go.
Well,
It was a very long-winded summary, but we got
Yeah.
there.
so what did you like about it, and what will we probably like about it when
If
we
we
watch it?
the one season that
Well,
exists.
Yes. The second season of the show is not real. It's not there. Pretend.
There is no second season.
There isn't. What are you talking about? There is no second season.
If there
The
was a
first-
second season, and
Which
there
there's
certainly
not.
is not,
There certainly
you
isn't.
shouldn't watch it. But you don't have to worry about that because it's not there.
Promised Neverland Season 2 can't hurt you.
It's not real.
Promised Neverland Season 2.
Oh, it certainly can hurt you, unfortunately. So, the first season adapts the escape arc, which it does in 12 episodes and just a really, really tightly written, hits all of the bases, doesn't feel rushed, doesn't feel slow.
Now, the escape from the orphanage or the escape from the
escape from the orphanage.
Oh.
It's immaculately paced, full of stunning revelations and things, most of which I left out for your viewing or reading enjoyment. But, yeah, it's just it's a very kind of textbook storytelling. There's nothing subversive about it beyond, establishing the premise, which isn't really subversive at all because it's, just your standard orphanage origin story.
Yeah.
Right.
At the end of the day.
It's subverting the subversion of the subversion.
Yep.
So it ends up coming back around.
Yep.
So beyond that, it's not setting out to be subversive. It's just a,
solid story.
By the book, solid suspense story.
Drawing some inspiration and narrative parallels to classic J.M. Barrie play/novel.
Yes. There's obviously the elements of, Peter and Neverland going on here.
That's the thing that I've noticed about anime a lot, is that they like to pepper in literary references. Or
that's most good, well-written.
But like pretty
literature.
directly. Like, well, in terms of names of characters or things that happen.
Sure.
There's name drop reference.
Maybe it's because there's different copyright stuff going on over there.
This isn't even name drop. It's like there's very clear parallels between kind of the story elements of, Peter and Neverland.
Yep.
Of the kids not growing up and taking that concept and applying it to a different situation.
Mm-hmm. What if they weren't growing up because they were being eaten for their brains, but not by zombies, demons?
Yeah, the demons don't call themselves demons, but
well, the humans do because naturally they're quite
they're
afraid.
big and scary. And
yeah.
And also, it's a Japanese manga, and their
concept
of demon is a little bit different.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Probably closer to an orc or something.
Yeah.
And orcs are pigs.
Ah.
In all Japanese stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway.
Yeah.
What are you guys' initial thoughts beyond?
It sounds intriguing.
What things that you've already said.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how that all plays out through watching it and stuff. But I do like the fact that it's not just a standard story where they have to defeat the enemy and break free. It's like there's a solution that involves, everybody getting the best. I mean, there's still sacrifice, but everybody getting the best of both worlds, if you will.
Mm-hmm. Despite it being a shonen, it's very cerebral in its problem solving.
Yeah.
Right. There's not a lot of...
I'm just going to punch you harder.
There's not a lot of complicated power system mumbo jumbo. It's just some really smart kids using their brains to think their way out of problems.
Mm-hmm.
Which is
because it turns out
refreshing.
Their brains are the most valuable asset in.
And it seems as though the human world isn't really even aware that the demon world is a thing.
It's not part of their day-to-day experience. It's in the history books. People are aware of it. Mm-hmm. But there's, part of the promise is that there's to be no interaction because then they fight. And fighting is what they were barred from doing.
Getting some Undertale vibes here. A little bit. Because you had the human world, there's, the wars and they had to cut each other off.
Sure. Maybe there's humans and monsters being separated and then...
Humans being hunted in the monster world.
Sure.
There's some...
Not really.
There's some...
The
little bit of parallel there. Not direct.
On the surface, but the theming and commentary is completely
humans
different.
are far more powerful than monsters, for one thing.
Right.
And that's the point they're making.
Yeah.
Whereas they seem about...
This is precisely the opposite.
Yeah.
In general, in a purely physical one-on-one fight, a demon will absolutely punch your head in. Like,
Yeah.
there's no contest.
Particularly,
They have
if you're-
incredible regenerative powers, and even if you are like peppering them with bullets as they do in Goldie Pond, some of them, like the most powerful demons, will just like regenerate through it, just walk at you. So you have to think through ways of solving that instead of just putting
You have
more
to
bullets in them.
outsmart instead of outforce them. Neat.
Yeah. So there's definitely an allegory here in the way that the premise is constructed of like the Western education system is kind of what they're making a parallel to, where kind of your existence is, your brain is farmed for economic productivity. That's the whole point of school. That's the whole point of everything. There's this aristocratic elite ruling class that
School
puts
as
you
it
through.
exists now.
Yeah, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of the main allegorical piece of this is like, yeah, we are just we're a product.
Mhm.
Kids in school. That's what you're there for.
And their ripeness for consumption is pretty young age.
Yep.
And they're not really allowed to grow up because of the outside forces.
They aren't allowed to be children, nor are they allowed to kind of gradually and organically grow into adults. They're kind of just forced into being adults when they're 12, when they get shunted into middle school and basically have to act like adults from then on.
Mm-hmm. So they're losing that bit of childhood.
Mm-hmm.
It's being eaten from them in a way. Yeah, that's an interesting allegory. Not that I have any first-hand experience in that.
Right, yeah.
Homeschoolers unite.
Both of you being homeschooled.
Yep, yeah.
Achieving the ideal of learning.
I mean, after a fashion.
Yeah.
I'm, looking back,
you
yeah,
have
but
the
like at the
opportunity to
time,
do
I wouldn't have told you
interest
that.
learning and things like that.
Yeah.
And it's sort of on your own schedule and, very self-motivated rather than.
But I mean, you do have to get out in the world eventually, and that
for sure.
you still meet some of the same challenges with the education economic complex wanting to gobble you up right off the bat.
Well, they don't get to gobble you up until you're at a point in your maturation that you're able to handle it.
Yep.
Such as
True.
is the case once by the time you get to college, you're kind of at the point where you're ready for that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Theoretically.
Not being forced to be in 6 clubs and be on the student council and all those things that you have to in a lot of schools these days.
Yeah, it seems like the issues with Western education seem to have hit Japan the hardest.
Yeah, because they took the formula and turned it up to 11.
Yeah.
Pretty much every Asian country has done that. Their results, education-wise, are much, much better than ours because they
because
they
culturally,
took the formula
being
and
the
went
best
ham
at
with
everything you do is much more ingrained in Eastern cultures.
And
Like look
if
to the
you-
martial arts.
If you aren't a doctor, a lawyer, or an engineer, you're a disgrace in your family. And there's a lot of heavy cultural implications and things that are bound up in education.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, the fact that every 4 out of every 5 shonen manga are related to school in some way, and it's like
just shows how centered it is.
Yes,
in their
schooling is such a central part of people's lives, and such a miserable part of a lot of people's lives, to the point that they want to fabricate a fantasy world into which they can make school into something more fun than it is.
I suppose we're sort of bleeding into truth a little bit with this.
So let's
kind of are.
transition into that then.
All right. Any other truths in Promised Neverland?
Transcendental analysis bits we're
Yeah.
moving into now.
Any other cool stuff, you should say?
Oh.
Any
we're
other cool
still
stuff
doing
before
we're
we
still
transition?
doing we're still doing cool stuff. Let's see. I think I've hit all the cool stuff that I had. That's not specifically one of the transcendental categories. So I think we can go to that.
Cool. As it were. Yeah. So truth. What sort of truths can we glean from Promised Neverland?
Education system in its current state bad.
Need fix.
Obvious problem. Inhumane. Please stop.
I feel like in the United States we're sort of seeing the reverse problem as Japan, in that people are very poorly educated, and that's how the systems fail them, whereas
the system fails them in America because they have other options.
yeah.
The cultural pushback for you to be a deadbeat is dramatically less here than it is there. And so people realize that they can hate learning and, still survive.
Mm-hmm.
In other places, they're like,
That's just not an option.
That's simply not an option. I can't.
It's either suffer learning or suffer
I will never.
excommunication from my
I
family.
will never culturally recover from this.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas in America,
It's hardly
other
a
stuff.
very person-centric view of education.
And it's a lot of pressure for a 12-year-old kid.
Because why form more well-rounded people to be fully realized in their personhood when we can just make people who are really good at making a lot of things that we can then sell to other people?
Mm-hmm.
And the entire structure of the school system as we know it was invented by J.D. Rockefeller.
Pretty much.
Yeah,
That's
not
why you
pretty
don't
much.
have,
like he created the K through 12 system that we have now,
Mhm.
specifically to make people into economic productivity machines.
Because prior to the advent of the height of the Industrial Revolution, education was much more based on the classics and so forth and formation. It wasn't
Mhm.
perfect, obviously.
Even
you-
up to like the 50s and
Yeah,
60s,
it was-
education was very centered in the classics.
It's slowly faded out. Probably more recently in like the English system, it would seem that was still pretty common until fairly recently. But yeah, now like philosophy isn't required in schools. Not all even offer it and so forth. But regardless, like everything is based around like, will you get high test scores? So bring on high rates of depression and learning disabilities and hardly being able to read and write when you get out of high school, because I'm sure many of us going through school can relate with like, what's in this for me? Like, why do I have to learn this thing just so I can be really good at putting pieces onto something over and over again in a factory? I mean, less so nowadays, but like at least when the system was designed.
Nowadays, it's less putting pieces into things in factories and more flipping burgers if you can't get any higher education.
Yeah, I think, well, and then for the time when like Rockefeller was putting this together, it's like, how do we form the perfect citizen when it really ought to be, how do we form a human person is the real approach to education.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, preparing you for adulthood in that you are able to function as a rational,
How do we form somebody who can follow the rules instead of somebody who can make good choices?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you can. It's kind of like it's kind of like objective truth versus logically coherent. The current education system is logically coherent, but you can have a logically sound argument that is just flat out wrong because the premise is completely off. It's not about forming people to join the marketplace. It's about forming people to be good people, is what it boils down to.
The trouble is that we don't accept that there is such a thing as
what is a good person really, right?
There is no standard for a good person because we don't have metaphysics, so we don't have human nature. So
Yep.
there is no universal standard of what is a good human.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an unsolvable problem with the intellectual structures of modernity.
Yep.
Mm.
And I guess I won't get too far into it, but from my experience in the Catholic schools, that is sort of the debate going on nowadays. Because a lot of people will complain, Catholic schools tend to copy. Like one of the complaints is that Catholic schools just copy what the public schools are doing with a couple of religion classes. I can't really speak to that side of things, but it seems to me like our school system that I work for is one of the exceptions to that, but I would believe it in plenty of other places and certainly historically. So Bishop Robert Barron had a couple of, like, there was at least a couple podcasts where they tackled like Catholic schools and education, and then, on the Crunch relatively recently, they're also talking about it. So if you want some more discussions on what good
shout outs to those guys,
yeah,
that are a lot bigger than us.
They're gonna get all these
all two of you.
Yeah, you just,
and one of you already listens to them.
Right? Yeah, you're gonna gain an audience member today. Tell you what. But yeah, like
You're
about
welcome.
what we're talking, like they discuss things like how education ought to be, from the Catholic perspective. So, can recommend. Going. I don't have any episode titles off the top of my head to refer to that, but
That about
so it's interesting how, yeah, even though like the story doesn't seem to overtly state that where you can pull that much out of it.
Yeah. I mean, it's an allegory. It's not super didactic or direct.
Right. Where does the promise and all that fit in? Is there anything to, like, Emma's sacrifice and stuff like that? How did, like, the kids breaking free? What does that represent?
you would have to change society as a whole in order to change the system.
Yes.
She went to the source and changed the whole structure of the society,
Mm-hmm.
and therefore it allowed them to be freed from the system that was oppressing them.
Mm-hmm. And the two approaches, like, there was her approach, and then there was Norman, right? His approach is like, well, let's just kill them all and burn it all down. Which, honestly, like, are the two sides of the debate nowadays. Is like, most people are like, you know what, the system's failed us, let's just destroy everything. And then you have the smart people going around trying to figure out how they can, what's the low aggro option? Or, no, not aggro. That's... Anyway,
low chaos version.
Yeah, the low chaos version of this. How do we stealth mission our way to fixing the problem? Yeah, which is certainly worth thinking about doing.
And you have to transcend space and time to do that.
Pretty
Yeah.
much.
So you need metaphysics.
You have to focus on you have to focus on the transcendentals. What is true, good, and beautiful and unitive in the human life?
Speaking of which, we should move on to good. Have we finished
Good.
the truth?
I think we've beaten the truth horse
We've
to death.
exhausted that.
Sorry, truth horse.
Sorry, truth horse.
We
are
hardly
okay.
knew you. Goodness. What is good in Promised Neverland?
The kids' relationships with each other are very good. They're a tight-knit family, and they always have been.
Always have been.
Always has been. But they're, growing up in the circumstances where everything is great, and mom is caring for them, if only to, ship them off later. But so inadvertently, it creates this really tremendous community of people who all genuinely love each other.
Mm.
And despite the fact that they're 12 and younger, that achieve some really profound...
Because you can still have survivors of the modern education system who
Commitment.
are capable of,
Emotional
loving
maturity.
and loving and caring for others.
Mm-hmm. And Emma has this... most people consider it naive goal of getting out with all of the kids.
And yet she succeeds.
And yet she doesn't succeed in...
It's like, what are you
doing
saying?
she
We get rid of tests?
She wanted to take all the kids, and eventually acquiesced and said, anyone under 4, we're going to leave and come back for, because they won't be shipped out for another 2 years. And they're just too infirm to carry themselves on the road. So she made a compromise, but she still achieved it where Ray wanted to leave with just the 3 of them.
But I mean, ultimately, she's able to get all the humans
Her
out.
connection and her, total victory attitude is very good. And Mr. Yugo, despite having a tough guy exterior, is also very, very caring.
He was get off my lawn angsty teen?
He's get off my line angsty teen. And he eventually becomes a very strong protector of the kids, even against the Norman's crew, who are much more jaded and beaten down by their circumstances.
Mm-hmm.
Beauty. What is beautiful about Promised Neverland?
Isabella's lullaby.
Ooh.
Go when you watch the show. When you watch the show,
the one season of it.
The one season. Oh, one of the things that makes me the most mad about season 2 is how cheaply they throw around Isabella's lullaby. Because it's this piece with just immense emotional meaning and attachment in the first season. It happened. It's played at these really significant moments. And there's a lot of symbolism behind its playing and its creation in the first place. But they just throw it around in the second season, and they just abuse it. It makes me sad, because it's the only piece of music they composed. And like, well, we gotta have it. We gotta have a music for this emotional point.
Mm-hmm.
Even though it doesn't have anything to do with the song represents.
Does it do the anime thing where it just plays like the same 3 songs for every story beat?
That's a lot of serialized shows.
True, but very pronounced.
It does, but it does it with meaning in the first arc.
But is that part of why they throw it around, the Isabella's lullaby around a bunch in the second season? They're like, we have this thing.
Because they just like, they have this thing and we're going to use it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
And it's very visually impressive, despite the limitations within which they're working, which is, almost exclusively non-supernatural stuff going on. They don't have a lot of those, wacky powers for people to use to make the visuals look more interesting.
Mm-hmm.
But they still manage to do some really neat visual stuff with some of the motifs. Like, time is one of the big symbols and motifs in the show.
That makes sense, since they have an expiration date, and time is the 7th gate, and
yeah. So, like, the stopwatch is when they're playing tag. The first arc is, a symbol that is used a lot in as a visual overlay. So they do some really neat things with some of the symbols.
Unity. What brings it all together?
Promise. Neverland.
Yeah.
That brings it all together.
Bada bing, bada boom.
The promise defines the world, and Neverland is what the world that has been defined is. And we're trying to break free of it.
They're trying to break the promise.
And forge a new one.
Yeah.
Cool.
Cool.
On that note,
go watch it, people.
Yeah.
And after
we're gonna watch it.
After you're done watching the first season, go read the manga.
Okay.
Any other comments or anything?
Nope.
Cool.
That's about it.
Sorry for being long-winded on the summary. We're a little long today, but
we've had longer episodes.
We have.
Thanks for listening to the Palladium Papists. You can listen to us on Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Twitter and Facebook at Papists. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, or complaints, or suggestions for future episodes, email us at palladiumpapists@gmail.com. We'll talk to you guys again next week. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.